problem. Mr. Canan, is that right? That's closer? Canan. I'm sorry. You got to speak with small words to me. I apologize for that. You got 5 minutes. We welcome your testimony.
Thank you. Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Grijalva, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify for you today. My name is Pat Canan. I'm a landowner along the Red River. I'm also a captain game warden with the state of Texas, so I come to you from a couple different positions. The land that I currently live on is on the Red River, and it was deeded by the state of Texas on January 29, 1858. And this deed called the north side of this tract to a stake on the bank of the Red River. This description was coming from the south side of the river towards the river, and so the actual boundary of my property as deeded by the state of Texas is the south bank of the river. I thought it might be helpful for the people gathered here today to see what I'm talking about, and this picture on the TV up here is a picture I actually took from the back porch of my house looking north. If you see that tree line just past that fence is the edge of the bluff, and all the land you see down there below there is actually the river bottom. And so we're not talking about something that's narrow, we're talking something that's a couple miles wide. It's hard to see on that picture, but kind of in the middle you see a little white speck. That's a barn just on the other side of the river. So the actual river is 1.5 miles from where my house is. If you go to the next slide, please. This is actually a slide taken 2 days ago when I went down to the river, and I'm standing on what is commonly called as the cut bank and took a picture of the Red River. So you can see it's a meandering river, sandy. The next slide, please. This is the actual cut bank. The definition established by the Supreme Court in 1923 recognized that the gradient boundary was the boundary between the state of Texas and the state of Oklahoma. The court defined the south bank as the water-washed and relatively permanent elevation at the outer line of the riverbed, which separates the bed from the adjacent upland. The bed was defined as the area kept practically bare of vegetation, and you can see from the previous picture that the river bottom is essentially bare of vegetation. The bank of the Red River was a so-called cut bank, and this was established between Oklahoma and Texas under the Spanish Treaty of 1819. The cut bank effectively confines the water to the sand bed except in times of flooding. This application of the gradient boundary has been accepted by all parties and was actually surveyed in 1923 when oil was discovered along the Red River. In 2008, BLM entered upon my land and set some markers on that land. Could you please go to the next slide? This is where my house was, just above this tree line. If you'll notice on this picture, there's a small bank there, a berm, and then over on the right-hand side is a T-post. Next slide, please. This is the marker that was placed at that T-post point, and on the north side it says Oklahoma, on the south side it's Texas. So the BLM has established the gradient boundary at that point. That point is about 20 yards below my house, about 1.7 miles from the Red River and 1.7 miles from the cut bank. Next slide, please. This is a Google map of that. The approximate location of the benchmark is on the bottom part of that map. It's that yellow point. The Red River is 1.7 miles due north of there, and so the BLM entered upon my property and set a gradient boundary that does not meet the definition of the gradient boundary. The claim on the BLM has, as Representative Thornberry has stated, has essentially stalled all development in the river bottom. Most of this land has been fenced and managed for livestock and farming since the late 1800s. Now, many landowners along this stretch that make their living and support their families are on land that is now being claimed by the BLM. The passage of H.R. 4979 would clear up this issue along the Red River and reestablish the private property rights to landowners along this section of the river. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and I'll open to any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Appreciate you taking patience with my ability to pronounce your name improperly.